Tonight's guest is Zack. Zack, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Vic. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time. Zack, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
My name's Zack. I'm 39 years old. Live in southern Massachusetts. Probably like a half a mile away from the New Hampshire border. Divorced father of 2 kids, and I'm a project manager for a construction company.
Well, it goes without saying, you stay busy. You've got a pretty busy life there, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Especially with all the sports and games and practices. It's a constant go.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I don't doubt that at all. Zack, now that you know about Dogmen, have they become an obsession for you?
Well, ever since I had the encounter last summer, before that I knew nothing about them, and I did start looking into it a little to, find out what it was I was looking at, and once I came across your show, I haven't listened to them all, but I've listened to a good amount of them, so I've done quite a bit of research, considering I knew nothing about them beforehand.
Yeah, that's pretty normal for someone who's seen a Dogman. When you found out what it was that you had seen, that it was called a Dogman, what were your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I don't even know if I still believed it. It took a long time to wrap my head around what I was looking at. I've had an interest in Bigfoot and stuff like that, but other than that, I was never really into cryptids or anything like that. So at the time, I was like, is this a werewolf? I really had no idea what it was I was looking at. And reading some of the encounters I've seen now, apparently it's a little more common than I thought it was.
Yes, it is a lot more common than most people know. And speaking of that, is finding out how widespread Dogman encounters are lessen the angst you feel when you think about your encounter, or increased it?
I don't know. Again, knowing that other people have experienced it, maybe it makes me feel a little bit less crazy. I really haven't told many people about it, but I did tell my mother, and, of course, she calls me Dog Boy all the time now and makes fun of me, thinks I'm crazy. But, it's nice knowing other people have experienced it, definitely. So, yeah, I think I feel a little more normal.
I really hate to hear that your mother's making fun of you like that. Do you think your mom might believe you possibly and just be making fun of you? Or are you convinced that she thinks it's just a bunch of you-know-what?
I'm sure she thinks I saw something. We do have coyotes around here. I've seen a couple bobcats, so there is wildlife around here. But the way I described it to her, either she thinks I'm exaggerating or she thinks I'm crazy, because it was real big.
Well, as you know, it doesn't matter what she believes. You saw what you saw, and that's all there is to it. You're definitely not crazy, and that's all that matters.
I definitely know what I saw. It wasn't that far away from me, and it was clear as day, so I don't have to question what I saw. I know what I saw.
That's right. How much different of a person would you say you are today compared to how you would have been if you wouldn't have had that experience?
I wouldn't say I'm much different. To be honest with you, I don't consider the encounter really that threatening or anything like that. So, don't get me wrong, when I'm out near the woods and it's getting dark, I'm definitely a little more leery and keeping my eyes and ears open a little bit more. But I wouldn't say it's changed how I go about my daily life or anything like that. I do camping quite a bit and still going to continue to do that. And, besides being a little more aware, I don't think it's changed much in terms of, how I live my life.
Oh, good. That's really good. Yeah, for some people, as I'm sure you already know, it just changes everything. They can't hardly do anything outside of the house. But to hear that you can, that's a breath of fresh air.
Some of the encounters I've heard have been a lot more frightening than mine have, that's for sure.
Thank goodness it wasn't as frightening as some of the encounters people have had. Your encounter took place in a fairly well-populated area. Do you have any opinions on why a Dogman would come into an area like that with a lot of people?
I have no idea. I mean, it is a residential neighborhood, and there are a lot of houses. It's a very nice neighborhood. But off to the left of the house, the woods start, and they go quite a ways back. I mean, there's a bird sanctuary back there. And I mean, there is a lot of woodland out there. Again, where I saw it was kind of in between the houses. So, yeah, at the time I was like, what is this thing doing here? But, it doesn't really surprise me in terms of having a place to hide because there is quite a bit of forest out back there. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go out there and we'd hike for hours and hours and not come across anything. So it's just all woods out there.
Well, sounds like he's got a lot of good habitat out there to lurk around, so maybe it's no surprise you saw one. And what surprises a lot of people as they come to learn things about dogmen is how bold they can be. Yeah, they will go into an area if they want to go into that area, and that's all there is to it. But speaking of that, when you started researching them, what would you say has been the most amazing thing that you've discovered about dogmen?
Again, I think it would be the number of encounters people have had. I mean, to me, it's kind of crazy to hear all these stories and to think all these people are seeing these things and to not have science recognize it or not have there be like a fossil record or just, more of a mainstream following because a lot of these encounters are 100% convincing. And it just kind of blows my mind to think that it's not accepted, as a regular thing. I guess would be the most surprising.
What really gets me is how many Sasquatch aficionados turn their noses up when you mention the term dogman.
Yeah. Like I said, I was interested in Sasquatch before. I mean, I never went out like looking for it or anything like that, but I definitely would watch TV shows on it and, read some books about it when I was younger just because I found it interesting. And, I definitely consider myself a skeptic, or I did, because I hadn't seen anything. But, some of the encounters I have heard of pretty much have me convinced that there's something out there. So, again, when I saw the Dogman, I guess it wasn't as hard to buy into it as it might be for some people.
Well, you've got an open mind, and that helps in a lot of ways, so that's a good thing. Before we move on, if you've had a dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, either way is fine, please go to dogmenencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. Also, you should know I've got a new Bigfoot show I'm producing. It's called My Bigfoot Sighting, and I put a link for it in the description for tonight's show. You really should check it out. If you listen, you'll see that it's a different kind of Bigfoot show, and I think you'll like it. Alright, now that I've shared that with you, let's get back to the show. Alright, Zack, please tell us about your encounter now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay, well, it was last summer, and start off by saying I had gone through a divorce not long before, and I actually owned a house up in New Hampshire, but after the divorce, I had a few back surgeries, so I had moved back at my parents' house where I grew up. It's a big house. I figured with the kids it'd be help around, and so I came back here for a while. And I believe it was July, and it was a weekend that I had the kids. My parents were going out to play cards that night, so it was just going to be me and the two kids. We spent the day at the pool, hanging out, swimming all day, ordered a pizza at night, and then we were going to come in to watch a movie. Probably came in around 8 o'clock or so, and if I remember right, we were watching one of the Avengers movie. It was like Endgame or Infinity War or one of them. And the three of us were just here, hanging out, watching a movie. And I had actually snuck out on the deck to sneak a smoke, try to hide that from them as best I can. But that's what I was doing. And I opened up the back door to the deck, and as soon as I opened up the door, I saw it. Now, when you open up the door at the back of the house, there's a big deck that goes off the back of the house, and then there's a big concrete pad along the outside of that with an in-ground pool. And around the whole pool area is a 6-foot stockade fence. Now, to the back left of the pool area is where all the woods are. It just goes on for miles and miles. But directly behind the house, there's about 10 feet of grass and then a hill with a strip of trees. And then behind that is the neighbor's house behind us. And they have a shed that's on top of that hill. Well, when I walked outside the back door, directly in front of me, it was walking up on top of the hill, and we both just stopped and made eye contact. The first thing that went through my mind was, that's a big dog. But, after a few seconds, I was like, wait a minute, that's too big of a dog. I've had large dogs my entire life. I had a German Shepherd growing up. After that, I had a Great Dane. So I'm used to having big dogs around, and this was just way bigger than anything that I've seen. And the look of it just kind of looked unnatural. It was walking up the hill, and its front legs were kind of curled in, and they just seemed too long. Its upper body seemed so much bigger than its lower body, and almost had like a look that it was like flexing, like its legs were bent in kind of. And after my eyes adjusted and I was getting a better look at it, it was tough to describe. It almost looked like hyena-ish in terms of like it had like big shoulders and darker hair around the shoulders, and a huge head. When I told my mother, when I described it to her, I had kind of compared it to, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Lord of the Rings, but those dogs that the orcs ride. It kind of had a look like one of those things. It was just really big upper body, a smaller lower body, and it had a real, like I said, kind of hyena-looking head. But we were looking directly into each other's eyes for a couple seconds, and it was kind of windy out that night, and a gust of wind had blown, and the gate to the fence had kind of banged around a little bit, and it turned its head to the side, so I got a good look at it from the side also. And, it had a long snout. It wasn't super long, and the ears were pretty high on its head, kind of set back. But again, the thing for me was just the size. It was just so big. And I think I had actually said like, hey boy, just to get its attention, and it looked back at me. Now again, I didn't get a real threatening feeling from it, and I had the fence in front of me, so it wasn't like, at the time I didn't think there was any way this thing could get over a 6-foot fence, so I really wasn't worried that much. But as it moved a little bit further up to the top of the hill, and I started getting more of a look at it, like, again, the size was just blowing me away. And I started thinking, this is unnatural. Like, what could this possibly be that is that size that's out in this area? And I had no idea what it was I was looking at. I probably stayed there for a minute or two staring at it, and I noticed my son walking by the hall behind me. So I kind of banged on the window behind me, and I told him to come here. And he came up to the door, and I said, do you see that thing? And it didn't take 2 seconds for him to see it. And he was just like, whoa, what is that, Dad? I didn't know what to tell him. My daughter had come over. She looked at it, too, and she was scared. I mean, she went back into the living room once she saw it. And he ended up leaving because he was getting a little nervous, I could tell. But I just sat there for another minute looking at it, and I could see it breathing, kind of moving up and down, but it just kept staring at me. And I decided I was going to flick the lights on in the back to try to get a better look at its color and everything, because I could see it in the moonlight, but I just figured with the lights on, it would give me a better view of it. So I turned my back real quick to open the door, and as soon as I did that, I heard like leaves rustling, and I knew it was moving. So I was like, that's when I was like a little nervous, I'll admit. And I just kind of went in, I flicked the light on real quick, turned around, went back out, and it was gone. So now I'm a little nervous, and I start looking over to the left towards the woods area, and I see nothing. And then I bring my head back to the right, and that's really when I got freaked out. It was right against the fence staring at me. Now, this is a 6-foot high stockade fence. And this thing was literally against the fence with its head up over the fence. And I could see like the tips of its shoulders. So, I mean, we're talking 7.5 feet. And when I saw that, I was just like, what? Like, at first I tried to justify it by thinking maybe it had climbed up the fence and put its paws on the fence. But even when I was thinking about that, I was like, there's nothing that big that would get up over a 6-foot stockade fence and be able to look at you. And, you know, as I was looking at it more and more, it literally looked like it was standing straight up against the fence, staring at me from about 30 feet away. I could see, again, top of its shoulders and its head. I kind of took a couple steps over to the right. Now, again, I still have the pool in front of me also, and the fence. So I took a couple steps over to get a better look at it. And it just followed me. It just turned its head to the side and followed me. And it was just breathing. You know, its eyes, they had a yellow tint to them, just staring back at me the whole time. And at this point, I was just like, what is this that I'm looking at? I had no idea what it was. Again, I knew nothing about Dogman at this point. As far as I was concerned, this is only something you see in a movie. So, you know, yeah, at this point I was getting a little concerned. But I stood there for another minute or so, just seeing what it would do. And it kind of, I wouldn't say it growled or opened its mouth, but it turned to the side, and I got a look at the teeth, and they were just kind of hanging below its bottom jaw. And once I saw that, I said, you know what? I think I might be best if I go inside. Now, when you go into the house, where this thing was on the fence, if you go back in the house and go over to the kitchen, there's a big picture window that would actually be like almost directly in front of this thing over to the side in the house. So what I did was I opened the door, kept the lights on, shut it, went back into the house, and went over to the kitchen to look out at it, and it was gone. And that was the last I saw of it. You know, again, we have coyotes and things like that in this area, and I've heard howls and yelps at night, and I always have that in the back of my mind, but I haven't seen it again since then. But like I said, just what I saw that night just blew me away. The fact that this thing could be standing up right against the 6-foot stockade fence and its head be a good 1.5 feet over the fence staring at me just blew me away. And I had no idea what I was looking at. That night, I went back in after I couldn't see it. I didn't go out back that night. I stayed in. My parents did come home later on that night, and that's when I told my mother, and that's when she got kind of a chuckle out of it. But I told her, I'm dead serious. The kids saw it, and I have no idea what it was. Throughout the night, I kept kind of peeking out there to see if I could see anything, but again, I never saw anything. The next morning, I went outside just to kind of see if I could see if there was anything maybe that was put there that it could have climbed up on or something. Maybe I wasn't crazy in seeing what I was seeing, and went back there, and there was literally nothing there. It was just green grass against the fence. So it had nothing to be on. That thing was standing up against the 6-foot fence, and it was towering over it. I went up on the hill, kind of looking for tracks and stuff, but couldn't really see anything because, again, it's more or less grass, and then where those couple trees were on the hill, it was just kind of leaves and stuff like that. But that was basically the encounter. It definitely made me a little leery being out there at night, you know, keeping my eyes open towards the woods there, and, you know, being a little more leery when the kids are out there for sure at night. But I never saw anything again, and that was basically the encounter.
You mentioned the stockade fence it was standing behind. Please tell the uninitiated what a stockade fence is.
It's just like that regular 6-foot wooden fence that you see, on a lot of properties. It's just like when you go to a Home Depot or Fences Unlimited or wherever. It's just like the standard fence that you get. It's 6-foot pickets. There's usually 3 crossbars, a post every 10 feet or 6 to 10 feet, whatever it is. And then it's got 6-foot high pickets that go, right up against each other. So you can't see through the fence. Now I'm 6 feet tall, and if I stand up against it, you can just see the top of my head over the fence. So whatever this thing was, it had a good 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet on me, because its entire head and like the tips of its shoulders were sticking up over that fence.
So it wasn't necessarily a big dog man, but it was still big.
Yeah, again, I thought Dogman after doing some research, just because, I don't know. I mean, I didn't see any paws up against the fence, and I just couldn't imagine any type of dog walking up to a fence like that and getting its head up over. This thing had to be standing straight on its back legs. There's no question about it. And like I said, the way it was, I could see its shoulders. Now, if you pick a dog up and put it on its hind legs, it doesn't have shoulders. So, I mean, it does, but not the way this looked. I mean, I could see this thing's head and like the sides and tips of its shoulders sticking out above this fence. It just didn't look like anything I've ever seen before. To me, it looked like a werewolf. It was literally standing up behind this fence, staring at me.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a sight that neither you or your kids are ever going to forget.
My kids definitely haven't forgot it, especially my daughter. She's the younger one, and like when it's light out, she'll ask me to go out in the woods and look for it. But once it starts getting dark, she won't go anywhere near there.
Well, I can understand why. And speaking of them, considering the fact that they both saw it too, how much trouble have they had over the years dealing with seeing it?
Well, my son's been all right with it. I mean, he definitely has it in the back of his mind, and I've talked to him about it. And when we go out there, if it's starting to be dusk or something, he'll keep his eyes in the woods just to see what's out there. But I would say my daughter is definitely a little more affected by it. She won't go near those woods at night. I've actually just kind of joking around with her, been like, "Come on, let's go for a walk out there." And she has nothing to do with it. She won't even go near there.
Poor thing. Yeah, I can understand why she would be shaken like that. You just mentioned that your son has that encounter in the back of his mind. How often, present day, do they seem to think and talk about that?
We've talked about it a few times. Anytime we're out in that backyard over towards the woods, we'll bring it up. We go out there to that area to shoot airsoft guns and BB guns and stuff like that. Because it just goes off into the woods and there's nothing back there. So, we're doing that. He'll bring it up. To be honest, when I found your show, me and the kids, we listened to a couple episodes together. And when they found out that I was going to be talking to you, they were all excited. So recently, they've brought it up a few times. And like I said, it's more my daughter that brings it up. She's definitely got it in her head a lot. And stays away from those woods when it's dark as much as she can.
Oh, I'm sure she does. Keep in mind, if you think either one of those kids would benefit from talking with me about Dogmen, I'd be more than happy to do that. Just let me know and we can always get that set up.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You mentioned how big it was. How much do you think it weighed, though?
Oh, geez. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. All right. My Great Dane weighed, I think she was like 160, 170 pounds. This thing dwarfed her. Its upper body was so big. If I had to say a weight, I'd probably say it was maybe 3 times the size as she was. So, I mean, 500 pounds, I don't know, 600. I mean, it was huge. That's what stood out to me the most was the size. I just had never seen anything that big. And like I said, I've had large dogs. We were actually at one point going to get a Mastiff. So, I'm pretty experienced with them. And I've never seen anything quite that size. I mean, this was enormous. Its upper body was just massive. I mean, I'm not saying its lower body was small, but just compared to the upper body, it looked so jacked. That thing was just so big. I've never seen anything like it, Vic.
Here's an unsettling thought for you. You said it was huge, but unfortunately it wasn't a huge Dogman. Yeah, that's a lot to wrap your mind around.
Oh, yeah? No, I'm saying you said it wasn't a Dogman. I have no idea what it was then. Like I said, my mind said I thought it was a werewolf. I have no idea what I was looking at. It was standing up against this fence. I've never seen a dog stand like that. Yeah, I don't know what it was I was looking at.
Oh no, it was definitely a Dogman. No, I think you misunderstood me. I was just saying that it was huge, but it just wasn't big for a Dogman. Dogman can be 12 feet tall, so.
Oh, yeah, no, I know, I understand that. Yeah, oh, sorry, I misunderstood the question. Yeah, believe me, it was still big, though. I wouldn't want to have come across it by myself in the woods, that's for sure.
Oh, no, I definitely get it. You said it had darker hair around its shoulders. Does that mean it had a mane?
It looked kind of like a mane. So the hair itself looked like it was a darker brown, or, close to black, but a darker brown. But the hair around its shoulders was, thicker and jet black. And then you could see the hair around its ears and its head went back to that dark brown color. It was kind of a two-tone color to it. But yeah, the hair around its shoulders and neck was really thick and really dark. Like I said, the first thing I thought was hyena. I mean, it looked kind of like a hyena does to me, with the thick upper body and the colors and everything.
When it was standing there looking at you over that fence, was it displaying any kind of emotion?
I've listened to a lot of your shows, and a lot of people, say they get this feeling of dread. I didn't have that. I wasn't about to go out there and stop trying to throw a tennis ball to it or anything like that. But it didn't really give off a threatening feeling to me. I mean, I had a pool in front of me and a 6-foot fence, and I was right next to the house. So if anything happened, I could turn around and be in that house in 3 seconds. Maybe that's why I'm saying this, but I didn't notice it growling at me or advancing upon, it didn't give me that feeling that it was threatening me. It was just kind of checking me out, I felt like. Why it was there, I have no idea, but, there's no doubt what I saw. It was right in front of me.
Oh, sure, yeah, you saw what you saw, and that's all there is to it. You never saw it again, but did anything happen later that night that gave you the impression it might have been hanging around?
Well, again, I didn't go outside that night. One thing after listening to some of your shows, people say it gets real quiet around. Maybe if I'd gone out, I would have noticed something like that. But once I had gone inside, I didn't go back out. I wasn't going to go exploring just in case. I mean, there's an opening where that fence is on the side that you can get into. And I wasn't going to take the chance in going out there. Again, I went around the windows from time to time that night, peeking out just to see if I could get a look at something. But I didn't see anything the rest of that night, no.
Did you ever hear anything, though? Any strange sounds outside that maybe gave you the impression that it was still there?
I didn't hear anything. The only thing I really heard was when it moved from the hill to the fence. And that was when I had turned my back to it. I heard it shuffle down the hill and through the leaves. Now, I had heard it breathing when it was standing there. It was dead silent between, it was only about 30 feet between us. So I definitely heard the thing breathing, and I could see it moving up and down. But it didn't howl, it didn't growl, nothing like that. Plus, it was July, so, the windows are closed and the air conditioner is running. So once I went in the house, you really don't hear anything outside anyway. And again, I kept my eyes in the windows just to, make sure nothing was peeking in on me. But, I didn't hear anything the rest of the night, no.
Okay, good. Yeah, that definitely helps. After going inside, how safe did you feel that night? You told us about looking out the windows and all the other things that you did. Did you feel safe once you made it inside?
Once I was inside, I felt safe. But keep in mind, I knew nothing about Dogman. There was nothing in my mind that could come and try to open up your door and get inside your house or something like that at that point. Had I known and heard some of these other stories, I might have been a little nervous. I might have went around and locked the doors and stuff like that. But at the time, I didn't think there was any way of this thing going to be getting in the house or anything like that. I figured with the doors and the windows all shut, I was fine. But again, I did want to keep my eyes in the windows. I knew my parents would be coming home later. Even though they pull in the garage, they would be coming home, and just wanted to make sure it wasn't sitting there staring in a window and scar my daughter for life. But yeah, well, that's about it.
You mentioned how you locked the doors and the windows. Well, one thing I like to share with eyewitnesses who are having trouble dealing with their encounters in healthy ways is the fact that dogmen don't need to use doors. If they want to come through a wall and get into the house, then they can do that. But when you have an eyewitness who's having a lot of trouble dealing with their sighting, when you shed light on that fact that, okay, yeah, I appreciate the fact that you locked your doors, you battened down the hatches, but if it wanted to get you in the house, it could have gotten you. Did it ever put its hands over the fence?
It didn't. It didn't put it, and I looked for that too, because at first I thought it was just an absolute gigantic dog, so I figured it had its paws up on the fence. It looked like it was standing straight up. Now, when it was on the hill, I could see, its whole body, and like I said, the way it looked when it was standing there, the front legs didn't look natural. I mean, when you have a dog standing there, they bend, but they kind of bend forward and back. This was almost like I said, almost like it was flexing, like its arms were kind of pointing out, and it had its hands on the ground. Now, it was dark. I couldn't see like fingers or anything like that. I couldn't get that good of a detail, but they were definitely shaped differently than any dog I've seen. It just didn't look natural. Like I said, to me, it looked like a werewolf. That's what it looked like. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, this does not exist. And that's when I found out about Dogman, and I've done a lot of research and everything, but yeah, at the time, it just looked unnatural, the front legs, but I didn't see its fingers at all in its hand.
It sounds like it did look like a werewolf. How much trouble have you had coming to terms with that experience? I'm still a little foggy on that.
Well, I wouldn't say I've had much trouble with it. I kind of find it interesting. Hearing all these encounters and reading about it, it blows my mind to think that there's something like that out there that not many people know about. And, again, it is in the back of my head. When I'm out there, I'll definitely keep my ears open and hear for some, if I hear something big going through the woods, my eyes go right over there. But I wouldn't say it's affected my everyday living or anything like that. But again, that might have something to do with the fact that I didn't really feel threatened by it.
Well, yeah, that definitely helps. The fact that it just, for the most part, stood there and looked at you. That's a lot better than how it could have behaved.
No, definitely.
After seeing what you saw that night, what are your thoughts on people who actually go out into the woods looking for dogmen?
I think they're crazy, to be honest with you. I mean, I wouldn't want to have a problem with one of those things. And if you're going out there and antagonizing it, you could potentially have a problem with one. And then I don't know what you're going to do. I'd say you're best staying clear of it. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go out looking for it. And if I saw it, I saw it. But I'm not going to go searching for it.
Well, I can't say I blame you there. And from the way you describe it, it sounds like you think that even I'd have a hard time whipping his butt.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know what you look like, Vic, but yeah, I mean, I'm 6 feet 240, and this thing would have no problem tossing me around.
Yeah, they wouldn't have any trouble tossing anyone around. A lot of people who are interested in the dogman phenomenon assign supernatural qualities to them. Do you think that dogman that you saw is supernatural in origin, or do you think it was flesh and blood?
Oh, flesh and blood. I didn't get any supernatural feeling from it at all. I saw it clear as day, so I know it exists, but I don't, like I said, I don't think it was anything supernatural. To me, it just looked like, well, I mean, I suppose a werewolf is supernatural, but, after researching Dogman, I just think it's a huge animal, It's just trying to live its life out there.
Yeah, it's got to make a living somehow.
Yep.
This might seem like a strange question, but do you wish in a way that someday down the road, you could actually see another one.
Oh, I do. I'd love to get another look at it, so long as it's similar to the one I got before. I wouldn't want one of these, chasing me on a dirt bike or anything like that. But, getting a good view at it, maybe seeing its whole body, its hands, things like that. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing it again, as long as the conditions were right.
Like if you were in an M1 Abrams hovering at 20,000 feet, possibly?
Yeah, or a shark cage or something like that.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Zack, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
I suppose that the feeling I got from this thing was that it wasn't trying, as long as I didn't bother it, it wasn't going to bother me. So, keep your eyes open, be careful when you're out there, but I'd like to think that if you stay out of their way, they're not going to terrorize you. But who knows?
That's a good way to look at it. But having said that, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, Vic. Thanks for having me.
You know you're welcome. Thanks again so much. Have a great night.